Silent Hill 4 is a strange beast. The theme behind its construction was change. Team Silent wanted to do something new, and they did just that. A lot of Silent Hill staples and themes were altered to create a new experience in The Room. Part of those changes came in the choice for main protagonists. Henry Townshend is not a murderer, a guilty person, or related to the cult in any way. He's easily what you might call an innocent bystander. It's only his poor choice in apartment buildings that draws him into the evil events of the game. Next time, he should really try Zillow. Multiple Silent Hill games start with a dream sequence, but only 4 starts with a third-person narrator introducing us to the dream and to Henry. Immediately, we are put at a distance to our hero. We aren't meant to identify with him. Silent Hill 2 starts with a mirror, with I Got a Letter. We see James's face and we hear his voice. We are him. But Silent Hill 4 starts with someone else telling us about Henry. We don't see his face immediately, but we do see through his eyes. At the same time as they are telling us Henry is this outsider, someone we are watching, we're also seeing through him. This is a game that is entirely focused on observation, on seeing and being seen. Multiple monsters stare at you and watch you before attacking. There are many occurrences and hauntings that are about seeing and being seen. Henry's only connection to the outside world is a peephole in his window through which he sees terrible things. The horror is in the watching, in seeing and being able to do nothing, or in the realization that something horrible has seen you. Henry is a photographer, a career that takes patience, creativity, and once again, places him as an observer outside the frame. He takes the photo, he's not in the photo. Many of his pictures are of Silent Hill, which he says he has visited. The main photo above his bed of Toluca Lake was apparently a gift from Frank Sunderland, an interesting tidbit we'll come back to later. Henry's name has a lot of meaning. There are many variations from Heinrich to Henry, but they all come from the same root words Heim, meaning home, and Rick, meaning power or ruler. Baby books claim the name means leader. What it really encapsulates is the leadership or ownership of your home. His last name Townshend is a variation on Townsend, which is literally a portmanteau of Town's End, the person that lives on the edge of town. Once again, Henry is on the edge, on the outside looking in, but he is also the house ruler. In a game all about being trapped inside your own home and fighting to reclaim it, naming your hero Henry says something. In my previous video about Henry, I talked a lot about his living situation and the clues that point to his past and current state of mind. Compared to Eileen's colorful and lively apartment, Henry's is dull, gray, lifeless, and badly lit, with little in the way of personal touch. He hasn't read his books, he says, since he moved in. His fridge is nearly empty, and he has 2 takeout menus in the kitchen. Examining personal photos of his childhood on the dresser makes him say that his childhood was an unsentimental time for him. He has no friends or family that come to check on him when he disappears. Clearly, his childhood was rough, causing him to cut all ties with his family. His isolation, his internalized emotions, and social awkwardness all point to an inward struggle. He wants to reach out to people, but doesn't know or understand how. He is quite possibly suffering from depression, anxiety, and may be neuroatypical, a term used for people who live with a condition that is considered not typically the norm, like autism or ADD. And let's be real, if he didn't suffer from depression before, he will when this is all over. Henry's behavior speaks of someone who has learned to make himself scarce. He is quiet and reserved, even in the face of danger. He rarely makes a lot of noise or draws attention to himself. Life has taught him at some point that to be heard, to be seen, is dangerous. His childhood is the best answer as for when this might have happened, and it makes him a beautiful mirror image of his adversary. Walter is someone who was abused and tormented and has turned his pain on others. Granted, there's that whole magic demon aspect to it, but still. Henry as a character who suffered in a similar way, yet chooses to help people instead, adds an extra layer of depth and emotion to the story and the game as a whole. He is the receiver of wisdom, the last sacrament, the one who really sees Walter, in the sense that he understands Walter because they have the same background. He is on a level with Walter that the other sacraments, save Eileen, aren't. The spell for the 21 sacraments never refers to the sacrifices as people, but the receiver of wisdom and the mother reborn are both mentioned, and their deaths are described in the same language as Walter's own suicide from earlier in the spell. The magic puts Henry and Walter on an even plane, and I believe their past experiences also mirror one another. Henry wasn't chosen by the apartment, he was chosen by Walter, but we're never told how, or if they ever met before. The only possible connection is the room, but it can hardly be that random. Some of the other victims might be random, but not this special, last 21st sacrament. Henry must mean something to Walter. Another sign of this is that he gives his most prized possession, the doll, to Henry. More than that, he speaks to Henry. He doesn't act in a calm or peaceful or rational manner to any of the other victims we meet in the game. None of them see him even as an instant as a normal human. But Walter goes out of his way, makes a point to meet Henry and speak to him as a normal person, and give him the one gift he ever received in his life, which he received at the lowest point in his life, a doll. The only comfort he ever had, which he apparently believes Henry needs. There's no malicious intent behind it. It doesn't serve a purpose. Sure, it creates a haunting, but there's no proof that Walter has any influence over the hauntings. Henry is someone who is so introverted he struggles to survive. I've seen claims that Henry is the most normal of the protagonists, that he had an average life before Silent Hill 4, but that just can't be true. He barely reacts to being locked in the room. This is a man with his emotions so pushed deep down he barely feels them and barely expresses them. This is a clear sign of trauma, of disassociation, of distancing yourself from your feelings so that it doesn't hurt so much. This man has no family, no friends, no job, no life. He is a ghost haunting 302. He hasn't retreated from the world for no reason. Some events in his past must have damaged him, but he overcomes that pain for the sake of Cynthia, Jasper, Eileen, and all the others. The fact that he likely had a difficult childhood and a lonely life, just like Walter, yet chooses to fight for others and defend them, is what makes him a wonderful hero and the perfect foil to Walter. Ultimately, he's cut from the same heroic cloth of our first hero, Harry. Like Henry, Harry is not magical or guilty of a crime. He's just a dad looking for his daughter. Henry is also driven to face Silent Hill for the sake of other people. The great change is that it is people who barely know him, strangers who he risks his life for. A quick last note before we go. I said earlier that the Toluca painting was from Frank. There's a theory that fans have circulated that Henry might be cursed by Silent Hill, and that might be what drew him into the events of the room. He comments that he was drawn to Silent Hill when you examine many of his pictures. Later in the game, he comments about his shoes, confused about where they came from or if they're even his, until he remembers he bought them in Silent Hill. They are said to possibly be the cause, and as funny as a shoe curse is, I imagine any object bought in Silent Hill would be suspect. But there's another possibility. The picture of Toluca Lake over Henry's bed, when examined, prompts Henry to say it was a gift from the super Frank. Being a picture of the town, it's likely from Silent Hill. Frank is a weird little homebody, but he's related to someone who visited there once. It's possible this picture was bought in Silent Hill by James and given as a gift to his father when he and Mary returned from their trip. Frank may have given it away because it hurt as a reminder of James, or because he thought Henry would appreciate it, perhaps both. But if you want to talk cursed Silent Hill items, a picture bought in the town by James and Mary, who may have been suffering under a curse themselves as per my last video, is one possible item that could do it, especially since Henry sleeps under it.